Well, greetings, everyone, and welcome to a very special online event today. It's called How to Develop a Mediumship Mindset, the Keys to Evidential Mediumship as a Way of Life for Building Confidence and Consistency with Readings. My name is Stephen Dinan, and I am the founder and CEO of the Shift Network. And I'm really excited and blessed, really, to be with you here, getting to explore one of the most exciting frontiers in consciousness work. It's really about communicating in a consistent way with the other side. And one of the people that has really helped to pioneer this work and help popularize it and really be one of our master teachers is Suzanne Giesemann. She's a mystic, medium, and author. She also has a very interesting background before she came to this work that we'll probably share a little bit about. She also recently ran a 7-week program, and we just had so many people have profound experiences, over 1,000 people in the program, great feedback. And so we're really excited to have her back to go a bit deeper today in what is the fundamental shifts of consciousness in our mindset that are really required to be able to open this portal to communication in a consistent way. So Suzanne, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Oh, thank you, Stephen. I just love being with all of you always. It's just a great field to sit in for a while.
Indeed. And I want to let everybody know up front, we're going to dive deep with Suzanne today, and we're going to have a more advanced program that we're going to share a little bit about later in the hour. It's called Mastering the Mediumship Mindset. So more to come on this subject. So Suzanne, I know you've shared a little bit about your background in different ways, but maybe I'd probably just start with a little bit of like the overview of what brought you to this work, and then particularly focusing around how you recognize in order to develop more consistency that you had to actually shift the sort of ground, the mindset that you bring to mediumship.
Oh, yes. Well, my background is 20 years in the U.S. Navy as a Navy officer, very left brain, very by the book, consistently disciplined with that left brain side. And what brought me to this work is not the fact that I've seen spirits my whole life. In fact, I wasn't even aware there was a spirit world until, unfortunately, my stepdaughter, Susan, was struck and killed by lightning. And somebody just asked us yesterday about grandchildren, and that's not going to happen because Susan was 6 months pregnant at the time with her first child. So they both passed 2006, and that's what led me right straight down this path without me knowing it lay ahead, because I just knew that you couldn't kill her spirit. I didn't have any up-close deaths in the family until Susan passed, but that just left no doubt in my mind. So I was bound and determined to find her. And I did. It took quite a while, but along the path of meditating and learning about attention and intention, I discovered we are so much more than these bodies. And so I eventually discovered that not only is Susan still here, but everybody's loved ones, and there are guides and angels and various levels of consciousness. And it's been just a totally wild, unexpected, and glorious ride.
Well, it's a fascinating background, and I just love that you have the Navy background too, which gives you a certain kind of logical approach to this subject as well. So let's talk a little bit about the mindset and why, it's not just about sort of communicating with the other side, but it's really about uplifting our own consciousness so that we can start to open that portal on a regular basis.
Yes, and it is important to say that in my Navy career, I served at the very top of the U.S. military. I was the aide to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the head honcho of the whole deal. And the way I got that job is because I was so disciplined, and there was absolutely right and wrong. There's black and white explanation for everything. And that just doesn't cut it with mediumship. There is success and failure when you're in the human mindset, but with mediumship, we have to get out of that black and white mindset and shift to a more free-flowing mindset and come to trust that we're not in this alone. We don't have to do it ourselves. We always have help. So it really is a shift from, I have to do this, I have to be successful. You can just feel the tension that comes with that mindset, shifting to knowing, and this is the key, I'm not only human, and I'm supported by an entire team of helpers at a non-physical level. That's just the tip of the iceberg, Stephen, but you can just feel that it goes from rigid to flowing, and the main ingredient is trusting.
How do you blend this sort of the trusting and the flowing with this seeking for evidence? Because I know that's what's so foundational for your approach, is that really getting clear, incontrovertible evidence is key to like having the impact that you want with a reading. And it's sort of like, you know, sometimes that can be, maybe it's like the kind of prove it to me attitude that might run a little bit counter to flow or being just purely receptive.
I get that. And that is a really great question, because at first, when you're a brand new evidence-based medium, that is the tendency to say, well, I need to prove this to my sitter, the person you're doing the reading for. And it's not counterproductive. It's really good to set that intention. But when you start getting the evidence, then you learn, okay, I get really good evidence the more I relax. When I don't relax, I cut off the connection. So there are moments during your initial readings when you're new to mediumship where you realize what's within you that's helping or hindering the connection. So when you relax, you get the real gold nuggets, as I call them, the really hardcore evidence you couldn't have known. And that builds up, which is why doing the readings is so important. You have to do it. You have to practice. And the more you relax and flow, and then the evidence flows, then the trust comes in. I can tell you, you have to trust. And that doesn't just happen. It's the result of a process of getting the evidence and all the tools that, of course, I'll be teaching in this course.
Give some examples from the evidence. Is like, why, when you're doing a reading, is that so transformational to get that clear evidence? Maybe a few examples could help.
Well, first of all, my key test of any good connection is, does the sitter leave it and say, that was my loved one, I know that was them? So a very clear description of their character, the personality, those across the veil, is evidential in itself. But then to gain information about how they passed and what they were like and what kind of work they did, all of that evidence takes away the doubt. And that's the goal of any good mediumship connection, that the loved ones find the comfort in knowing that death is not the end. So it's just critical to this work. I'm not sure if I remember the second part of the question, but
just an example or two of like when a piece of evidence really shifted somebody's life.
Oh, goodness. Well, my most memorable one that comes to mind immediately is when a woman's husband who had passed said to his wife through me, "Don't you dare take those pills in your purse." And she had filled her purse with enough pills to take her life if she didn't hear from him in the reading. That was a lot of responsibility that I'm really glad I didn't know about. But that's pretty darn evidential. Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah. So let's circle back to the mindset and maybe first it would be good to contrast what is the mindset that we tend to inherit as part of our dominant culture, and how does that contrast with the medium mindset that we want to cultivate?
Well, it all comes down to ego, Steve. And the ego is the part of us that's our story that keeps us feeling separate from others. And it fills us with fear and doubt and worry. And these things pop up in a reading quite naturally. And they probably always will, but we learn to recognize it. And I tell people, pat ego on the head and tell it to go sit in the corner over there, because it doesn't serve us in a reading. But it's a limited mindset that I can only get so much in a reading, or I couldn't possibly get that kind of information. What if I fail? Or what if I don't get anything? What if I look foolish in front of my sitter? These are all part of the human mindset. But I have to tell you that a perfect example of the difference between human and the soul, which is who does the reading, actually. You don't want to do a reading from the human mindset. You want to shift and know I am connected. And that's the soul aspect of all of us. The perfect example is in this last 7-week course that I taught. I wanted to give everybody an example of what a full reading is like. So I volunteered to do a full reading for our course host, Lisa Bonis. And as I sat to record it, I could feel the difference in myself from several years earlier when I did the same thing with another course organizer. And that one went well. And I had my ego pretty well managed previously. But this time I could feel the difference in sitting down and saying, well, my expectation and my intention is that this reading will go well. I know that there could be up to 1,000 people watching this reading. And if it doesn't go well, there must be a reason. And even that will be a teaching opportunity. So just to have that mindset going into it is absolutely freeing. And in the middle of that reading, Lisa didn't give away anything with her face. In fact, quite the opposite. She kept looking puzzled as I was talking. And then I would say, do you understand this? And she'd say, oh, yes, this is my mother. And so she was like this contrast, example in contrast. And then at the very end, the difference between mastering mediumship and just being new is it went very well. And instead of like, yes, I nailed it, I just felt gratitude. I just was grateful to Spirit and grateful that we had gotten the kind of reading that we set the intention for, but also that Lisa had such a beautiful reunion with her family. All around, it was just a win-win, but also provided a great example of how we can expect constant improvement in our mediumship and in ourselves. Because if I could get back to that one word, freedom, that's what mastering this mindset brings us. Just freedom from the ego and all those human feelings that aren't so pleasant when we go through them.
Beautiful example from Lisa. And I want to circle back with something you said about like you want to do the reading from your soul, not your ego. And so what are the markers of starting to access and reside in your soul as you're attempting to create a bridge in a reading?
First, it's coming to know what it feels like to be in soul perspective. And we come to know that through a contemplative or meditative practice daily. That's my intention for all of my students, even if it's just a few minutes a day, to be able to get centered and make the very critical shift from identifying with yourself as a human in a body only to shifting to the more spacious, expanded awareness of the soul. And you recognize the soul when you're aligned with it. You're filled with compassion, kindness. There's a feeling of flow, spaciousness. That worry and fear and doubt that I talked about, they're just off to the side. You're aware they're part of your human story, but you're not identifying with it. So it's an actual shift that you make. And once you sit in that awareness and start doing your readings from this more spacious aspect of yourself, it has a different feel to it. There's definitely a flow to it. I can tell when working with students if they've made that shift. I had the opportunity to sit with a psychic who was doing a reading for me, and she dealt out some cards, and she was just reading those cards at face value, Steve. And I sat there watching her with such curiosity, wondering if she was ever going to shift to soul awareness. But she just stayed in human awareness, and I have to tell you, it was not a good reading. It wasn't accurate, but I sure learned a lot. I learned what doesn't work. Mm-hmm. I already knew it, but she proved it in not making that shift.
What I would imagine sometimes is not entirely binary. There's a little mix of things going on. There's like maybe residing in soul awareness and some other parts of the ego that come in. I wonder how to differentiate between where there might be some different flavors happening.
Yeah, well, it's like I describe it like being a flying fish that can stay above the water for a while and then it dives back down. And we actually had flying fish land on the deck of our boat. It's really cool to be out at sea and have that happen. So this analogy is perfect for mediumship because we can shift above the human mindset for a while and hold it as we do our session. And then the sitter might give you a no or two no's in a row and boom, we fall right back into human ego mindset. Like, oh, what if I get another no in a row? That's not mastery of the mediumship mindset. But you work through that, you come to know what that mediumship mindset is like, what it's like to hold soul awareness, and you can learn to stay above the water for longer periods.
You know, one of the things you said earlier sort of implied that even sort of something that's not successful in the sort of could be like for a higher purpose. And I wonder if you share a little bit more about why that, you know, that some information may not be 100% accurate, for instance, that comes through. And that's like, why, if you trust that might have a higher purpose, like that's kind of interesting.
There are so many purposes that could come to mind right off the bat. we personally, as a medium, may have some things that we need to learn. I just had to call off a reading yesterday, Stephen, and it was the second in a row. And this rarely happens, but I knew it was because of something going on in my life. So I sat down in meditation, and as I always teach my students, I asked my guides, what's going on? What do I need to do here? I got the biggest lesson, and I adjusted my energy, and it was like this big pop. All of a sudden, I could feel all the spirits around me who had been trying to come through in a reading. So learning the difference between when you are attuned and not is huge in mediumship. And that lesson for me, when it didn't work, instead of panicking, which I could feel it coming, and I went, wait, that's not mastery. We're not going back. We're going to see that there's a reason for this here. And then you go and you ask, and ooh, gave me new information that I've already added to module 1 of this course about working with your energy. Something, because I hadn't had that experience yet, just added a whole new level. So reasons for things going wrong, there are many reasons, but we just keep growing, keep learning, and see that a no is not always a no in a reading. That's another thing. That's something we pay a lot of attention to in a course. When your sitter says no, you come to know, am I wrong, or do they just not know what I'm saying, or have they not learned this yet? So mediumship is more of a dance. There are rules and processes and systems that we can follow, but it's more about learning how to flow moment by moment. And that moment by moment flow is what the soul does.
And it sounds like that moment-to-moment flow is really depends on releasing attachment to outcome from what you've been sharing.
It does. And that's a whole topic in one of our modules, because that's human mindset again. I have to be successful, but there are different definitions of what is successful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, really great. Well, we've started to talk a little bit about energy and the energy management, energy work aspect of lifting ourselves into a mediumship mindset and really living from that soul awareness, or reading from that soul awareness. So maybe we can lay some foundational understandings of how to work with your own energy and also the energy of a sitter in a session, and then we can lead into a practice around that.
Yes, I used to think it was highly important to really manage, because we can't control the energy of your sitter. But really, what's most important is managing our own energy. The more high energy, which is always going to be love and compassion and care, that we can fill what I call the energy field with, the greater the connection. Because I've had sitters who are up and on and just really excited about a reading, and those are really easy to make good connections if you, the medium, are also feeling up. But I've also had sitters who are in terrible grief. I used to think, well, I can't read for somebody because they're pulling down the energy so much when they're like that. Not so anymore. So that's part of the process of learning, that we don't ever place the blame in a reading on why it might not go well, but we see what we can learn from each reading. But working with your own energy, as you said, Stephen, is just highly important. And there are so many tools that we teach in the foundational course, but yet, as I just said, we're always learning new things. And I'll just give you a quick hint. I've always focused on the chakras being blocked, or never fully blocked, but constricted. Let's put it that way. When something happens to us, we get some constriction. So we do a full chakra balancing, chakra clearing exercise, and usually that does the trick, but it wasn't doing the trick for me. And it's because what I learned yesterday is we also need to focus on the main trunk, the main axis here that's actually feeding those 7 chakras. And there are times when actually the energy coming in can find some density before it even gets to the 7 main chakras. So understanding energy and the flow is really important to our connection with the spirit world.
Beautiful. Well, I think now would be a great time for you to guide us in a practice where we learn to work with our energy in a way that uplifts our mediumship mindset.
Yeah, I love this one. And I've never led anybody through it before, but I've been doing it myself. And it's powerful and beautiful and feels good. So I call it the energy diffuser. Many of you may have those little, what do you call it? Essential oil diffusers that usually kind of like a little bulb, and you add heat to it with some oil in it, and a little wispy smoke comes out of it. So with that in mind, I'd like everybody to get centered by closing your eyes, and let's imagine a shaft of light that goes around you and grounds you into the earth. So the flow of energy is both coming up from Mother Earth and coming down from the cosmos. You have this nice flow going there. And let's take a nice centering breath. Breathing in nice and slowly, pulling that into the abdomen. And exhaling longer than you just inhaled, releasing any tension that doesn't serve you. Let's take one more nice, relaxing breath. And as you exhale, just feel any distractions floating away and just sink into a nice, relaxed state. The quickest and easiest way to come into alignment with the soul is to think of what you're grateful for. So bring to mind 2 or 3 things right now that you're grateful for, and truly feel that gratitude. You're actually helping your field to burn brighter right now. You're raising your consciousness with those feelings of gratitude. So we're going to expand our field by imagining your aura right now, the sphere around you. You can almost feel the boundaries of it based on how relaxed you are and how bright your light is. Let's fill that aura with even more bright light from the heart area. Turn up your light, turn it up a little more. Now take in a nice breath and expand your aura out as far as you can on the out breath. All right. Now in this expanded state, I'd like you to set aside your identification with the body and your story and shift your focus to soul awareness, a spacious state of pure being, no worries, no fears, simply being this beautiful light. And yet, in awareness that you have a story, we set the intention to upgrade our energy field when we're in a body. So imagine in front of you a diffuser, a physical object, whatever shape you'd like. How do you picture it? Visualize it out in front of you. And now we're going to put into that diffuser 3 soul qualities that are already yours, but that we wish to imbue our human story with. What could you use more of that would help you in connecting with spirit? Perhaps more self-love and compassion. Imbue that from the soul into this diffuser. What color would it be? Like essential oils, we're just putting it in its basic essence right now. Essential essence of loving compassion. What else would you like to imbue your human story with right now? Perhaps more gratitude in your life, perhaps more peace. What goes into the diffuser? And now, imbue that diffuser with warmth, with heat. And as you watch it, this wispy energy begins to come out of the top. Different colors for the 3 different qualities that you've imbued it with. In soul awareness, but aware that you are sitting in a body right now, breathe in that wispy energy, the essence of those qualities that you feel would add more light to your human story. As you breathe it in with the intention of upgrading your energetic field in a body with these essential qualities, feel that wispy energy completely envelop your human body that you're still aware of, even though you're sitting in soul awareness, flowing throughout your field. Breathe in more of this essential energy. Know that it is going within every cell at the physical level in your physical body, but also affecting your energetic field at every level: mental, emotional, spiritual. The diffuser is still pumping out that beautiful energy with which you imbued it using your intention. And with that same intention, it is flowing back towards you and filling your field. Breathe in till you know you've received enough for now. Feel the lift, the freshness, how re-energized you feel. And the diffuser stops flowing, but it is always available to you now. Whenever you want to repeat this exercise, you can breathe in more of that energy or fill it with whatever is lacking. Your intention, your belief that energy flows where you put that intention, and your attention have resulted in an actual upgrade to your overall energetic field. And with gratitude to yourself for doing this exercise and to Spirit for inspiring you with exactly what qualities you knew to take on board at this time, taking a nice breath and come back into embodied awareness.
That was really lovely. And I really used a diffuser to sort of to permeate qualities of energy through my whole being. That's really quite a beautiful practice.
It's very helpful. I've used it and it just shifts the mood and carries throughout the day. So I hope everybody enjoyed it.
Do you find that that's like a good thing to integrate into your meditation all the time, or is it more just when you're wanting to uplift to a certain frequency for doing a reading?
That would depend on each person, but really it's an as needed exercise. Every day would I feel indicate that you feel you're not good enough, and you already are. So this is just for a little boost.
Well, I'd love for you to share more about just some of what you do to prepare for a reading, and how do you sort of enter into this medium mindset and to lift your energy. So what, before you're going to do a session, what are some of the steps that you do to prepare?
Stephen, the most important thing about the mediumship mindset is that it's not just before a reading. Every moment of our life is preparation for a reading. So if somebody pushes your button and you go off and it sets you off, then you notice it because it feels so different from when you're in soul awareness. I was rear-ended in my car this morning, and my immediate reaction, I pounded the roof of the car and I said, no, no, no. And then it was like that was the human reaction. And that was totally an automatic but relevant and proper reaction for that situation. But I immediately caught it because of all this training in feeling the difference. And I got out of the car peacefully. I walked up to the person who hit me, who was a little afraid what's going to greet her. And I said, okay, let's deal with this. And it was so peaceful and loving. It was amazing. And I don't know if it would have been that way in the past. So I could have gone into a reading immediately after Stephen. I could have done a reading within half an hour being rear-ended in my car this morning because of the preparation that's ongoing every day. And that preparation is a few minutes of sitting in the silence, and throughout the day, shifting my awareness. Am I connected to my team? Is there anything I need to know? And then, of course, right before a reading, getting centered, taking my energetic pulse. Do I just need a quick chakra balancing, or do I need to do 10 minutes here today? And so it's a way of life. That's what I love about the mediumship mindset, that things that normally would send people into a tizzy blow over very quickly, because we need to be balanced, because things come up in readings that can really knock our socks off, surprises that you didn't expect in a reading. And you need to know how to quickly come right back to center and be that balanced voice for those in spirit who no longer have a voice.
That you're bringing up an interesting point there, that it's not just about the sort of the negative spirals, that sometimes being sort of like overly excited can be a problem as well. So it's like you want to really find that center point, it sounds like.
That is so true. I just found that last week, something had me all super excited, and I have learned a hard way. What goes up does come down. It's absolutely like the swing of a pendulum. And I love getting really excited, but I don't really like the other side of that. So I've learned to temper it. And there are times when I know I'm going to be super excited, and I willingly get that way, saying, okay, but just not too painful. So yeah, learning balance is very key to mediumship.
And going back to the fender bender this morning, which I think is such a great example for all of us of really putting this into practice as a way of life. So it sounds like part of what you created space, a short space for your human reaction, and then noticed it. And then how did you shift into being in such a positive state? What did you do in yourself to really focus more on coming back to center and balance and just beginning?
It's years of being mindful and knowing we're souls, and that could have been me that rear-ended the person. It's just, it becomes part of who you are. That's why this mediumship journey is so beautiful, and that all the tools that are coming out in these classes lend themselves to our day-to-day interactions with others. So Stephen, I didn't have to stop and do a practice. It was just an awareness. I'm out of alignment. If I greet this situation with peace and love, it will totally change the interaction. So let's just be that presence of love.
It sounds like there's also a piece around just not identifying with like, oh, the kind of poor me. It's like, well, I don't have to deal with this, or you don't get over-identified with that part. And there may have been, maybe the reason you got into that is tell this story on this call today. So it's other people, you never know.
It could be. And because it's really interesting, I had to really look hard to find a scratch on the car. And it was such a huge impact. I was stunned that there was not a scratch, a little teeny thing. But so maybe that's true, Stephen. And I was just so grateful to be able to drive away from that and say, wow, that went well. But you just said that maybe some people don't make that shift, or whatever you said. It just reminded me of a book that somebody gave me recently to read. I think they wanted me to have somebody on my podcast because they claimed to be a medium. Okay, I dived in because the person's story was really fascinating about some really challenging lessons they had in their life. And I started reading, and boy, it was an attention getter, the challenges this person faced. And I kept turning the pages, and the challenges kept adding up. And pretty soon I was turning the pages just to find out, when is this person going to shift to coming from the soul? Because I'm 100 pages into this book, and they're still playing the victim here. We're still giving all of the attention to the drama and the story. So I read the whole book in one evening, Stephen, because I wanted to see, are we going to get this shift? On page 154 out of 170 pages book, she mentioned the soul, but she didn't shift. She was just aware that there is a soul, and yet she never got out of the drama. And I thought, isn't that interesting that we can still see spirits and stay stuck in human mindset? So I'm not guaranteeing people that you're a medium and certain things make for better evidence. There are some people that never shift to the soul perspective and can get good evidence. What I'm promising people is, if you can learn the tools that'll get you to the mediumship mindset and master that, you will be free. free to find peace and joy and love no matter what is going on in your life. And that will directly benefit your readings.
That's great. So there's sort of a higher purpose beyond just getting good information and reading that sort of helps to anchor this as a new way of life. Really beautiful. And I always find that with you that it's helpful also to sort of ground in some specific stories. I love the stories that you've shared about getting rear-ended. Is anything else that's recent that you feel like has been a good teaching for you in terms of like a reading that led to an insight around your energy or the mediumship mindset?
Not so much about a reading, but it's one of my students in the last course. I can see a few students when I'm teaching, not the gallery view, but a few across the top when we do our Shift Network courses. And I was so surprised to see a student who has studied in person with me and online in Shift Network courses several times. And I thought, why is she taking this basic course again? So I reached out to her and she said, Suzanne, I just needed a dose of motivation and inspiration, and you always do that for me. But at the end of the course, she wrote, and it was just so validating and wonderful to hear. She said, not only was I inspired and motivated, but she said, some of the things I've heard you say before finally sank in. And she said, I'd heard this, but I wasn't actually doing it. And I just thought, that is so perfect, because it's how we learn as humans, like a spiral. We hear something, but we don't apply it. Then the next time around we hear it, we're not quite ready to apply it. And then here we'll finally pick it up. So this journey is not linear. It's like a spiral. And I was just really grateful to hear that, yeah, you can learn these things and continuously pick up new things. So she's a woman whose example I've given before, and I'll share it again, a beautiful moment in mediumship where her cat came through, Stephen, so beautifully. And I had no idea how much of a healing influence on her life that cat had been. And this cat is talking to me in words, because information comes into our field as a frequency, and then the brain translates it into whatever language the medium speaks. So even a pet that never spoke a language transmits thought through consciousness, and it comes through as words. So this cat gave me so much evidence about itself, Stephen. I mean, I could list it all, but the most memorable moment was when the cat said to me, I protected her. It was my job. And she was beside herself with joy to connect with her cat, because she said that her husband used to travel a lot for work. And every time before he left, he would go up to the cat named Asti. He would say, Asti, I want you to protect your mom. That's your job.
That's so great. Well, Suzanne, it's really clear when you talk about like some of the lifestyle shifts, just how global really the implications are of doing this work. And so I'm excited to talk about your upcoming programs, since I know there's people are really evolving and changing in such deep ways as a result of taking this on as a practice. So there is, so the program that Suzanne is going to be teaching is called Mastering the Mediumship Mindset. Supercharge your evidential mediumship skills to trust your ability to effortlessly connect with spirit. So on the one level, it's focusing on that connection with spirit, being able to dialogue with the other side. And on the broader level, it's really shifting your whole quality of consciousness and being, like where you're coming from in your life. And as a result, there's a natural outflow into how you're able to communicate with the other side. So, Suzanne, I'd love for you to share in your own words about this program and where you're going to be taking people, and I can read out the module titles and give a preview of what's coming in each.
I would love to just share overall, Stephen. I don't know that I've ever been more excited about a course, because first of all, to teach a class called Mastering the Mediumship Mindset, the teacher always has to be a little bit higher than the students. And I thought, am I ready to teach a course called Mastering This? Have I really mastered it? And just in these last couple of days, when I had to call off the readings and I went back over what I'm teaching, and I'm saying, look, all these things want to come up in me, but this is not where I am anymore. And then getting these insights, I'm so grateful to be able to have been where I was, not be there anymore, and be able to actually teach people, show them, this is how you don't necessarily have to go through what I did. But if you are going through it, it's perfectly normal. And here's how you can overcome it. But be joyful the whole way, because we're always improving. So mastery is a process. It's an ongoing thing. And I'm not saying I'm at the top. It's just beautiful to see that there does come a point, however, where you experience that freedom and that joy. And that's my goal for everybody with this course.
Beautiful. Well, the whole course is laid out in detail at mediumshipmindset.com. So I'll read the module titles. So module 1 is called Understanding the Elements of the Mediumship Mindset to Become the Most Accurate Medium.
Oh, yes. And it's a lot of the basic things we were talking about here, Stephen, but we're going to take a look more at the qualities of when I'm in only human mode versus how to better see ourselves from that soul's perspective, diving in a little bit deeper to that in this first module. We're really going to talk a lot about the element of trust. When we can go into a reading with total trust, that flow is amazing, and it's a beautiful feeling. So just recognizing what the goal is very important. So right at the start in this first module, that's what we're going to do. But I'm also going to share, as I mentioned, the latest insights about how to get that energy flowing optimally, not just through the chakras, but from the masculine and feminine, the yin and the yang, finding the balance that's so critical. So some brand new exercises right from the start in module 1. And just like in my last 7 module basic course, we use the HemiSync technology to more quickly get into a whole brain mindset, and not mindset, whole brain state, a coherent state, which is optimal for mediumship. And I'm introducing 2 additional HemiSync recordings that people will want to try that are called Tools for Awakening, because the more we can come to know ourselves as souls, the more we can stay in that soul point of view doing readings, which I pointed out is so critical to just tuning into spirits versus making that shift and coming from a higher place.
Module 2, naturally radiate a higher vibration to bring joy into your readings.
This is a double meaning when I say bring joy into your readings. Anybody who's studied with me knows that I call God or source joy. That's my name for that field that we tap into in a reading. So how to bring more of the source energy into a reading, bring more joy into a reading. How do we tap into that? But also how to experience joy at the human level, that human level of joy that actually raises our consciousness so that we can merge more fully with the whole field of joy. And it starts with understanding an open heart and balancing the head with the heart. So I'm going to be talking about the different flavors of energy, a new term that nobody has heard from me until this point, that we bring into a reading. We're not always bringing the same energy every time we sit down. We may have an overall flavor, and with me, everybody calls it my enthusiasm, right? But I'm not always in this place. So recognizing the different flavors that we carry around as humans and adjusting that to each sitting is the focus of that module.
On March 5th is the first live Q&A session with Suzanne. In this session, you'll be able to engage directly with Suzanne and ask questions you've had about the first part of the course. Module 3, master the mind through one-pointed attention to more skillfully communicate.
Okay, one-pointed attention is more than just being centered. It's that one perspective of the soul. So we're really going to talk about how it feels to be in soul awareness, why it's so important. And so we're going to focus a lot also on being the observer, and not just during readings, but during your day-to-day interactions while in a human body.
Module 4, the art of non-doing and centering to uncover the strongest evidence and most accurate messages during readings.
Okay, I haven't taught in the past about this concept of non-doing. So we're really going to focus on the difference between non-doing and what is it, and being passive. Both are very important in a reading. So what does that mean? How do we do it? How does it help us to master mediumship? We also are going to spend a lot of time in this module coming to peace with the ego. we don't want to make ego our enemy. We want to work with it, recognize how it works in our human life, but also how it gets in the way in a reading. So if we make friends with it, make peace with it, that's very helpful. And I'm going to introduce a really powerful phrase in this module that opens us up to more of the limitless nature of the soul that will bring in even more gold nuggets in a reading.
And on March 26th, join Suzanne for the second live Q&A session. Module 5, practice the skill of presence to access the higher intelligence of your subconscious so you can relax and feel comfortable in readings.
This is so critical because a person who hasn't mastered the mediumship mindset doesn't really know what presence is like. And the minute you get a no from somebody across the veil, you lapse back into past readings and how they didn't go well. So we'll look at how to maintain presence more often, how it helps in a reading, and how that affects your whole life. We'll do some exercises in looking at diving into what our habits are and how our habits feed into what we bring into a reading. Look at common excuses that we make for our mediumship. This course, Stephen, is really going to ask people to take a good look at ourselves. And that may take some courage, but it's going to be a very supportive environment. And once we start doing that, the payoff is not just in the readings, but day to day.
Module 6, the process of grounding to achieve balance and optimize your soul-to-soul connections.
Okay, I haven't talked a lot about grounding in my classes to this date, but I've had some really strong teaching from Spirit over the past year about the importance of bringing in that grounded energy and how we don't want to eschew or disdain the physical body, that it's actually important to maintain our embodied awareness, just like we did in that exercise earlier. Even though we set aside our identification with the story, we still want to appreciate the body and all that it brings to our work as a medium. So we're going to dive more into groundedness and, of course, do some exercises to experience that.
Join Suzanne live on April 23rd for the third live Q&A session. Module 7, understand the flow of life to transform frustration and overwhelm into a centered, peaceful way of being.
Yeah, I've had really great teaching about this flow, and I'm going to relate it to like a fountain, but we're going to get into a little bit of sacred geometry with the torus shape that's around all objects and what's not just objects, all fields. All energetic fields have this torus shape. And so when we can actually become aware of this flow in all directions, it changes our lives in beautiful ways. And I'll be bringing some examples of day to day and also in the readings. And everybody will have a chance to experience themselves as that flow, which is a beautiful thing.
Module 8, release your attachment to outcome to feel and express the fullness of your soul.
Well, this comes right back to the human nature that says, you know, I have to be successful. The reading has to be good. Well, what is success in a reading? I've had readings that didn't go well, and it turned out to be such a gift to everybody involved. So if we can lessen that human mindset on good and bad and successful and not successful and come up with a whole new way of seeing that, it changes the way you look at a reading. Just like that example I gave when sitting down to record the reading for the Shift Network class. I didn't look at it as what if I fail, because if there's no focus on success, then there's no failure either. So wrapping your head around that. We're also going to address competitiveness and comparing yourself to other mediums. That's very much a human thing. And we'll have a nice discussion in there, which will lead some light bulbs to go off for people and hopefully allow them to feel more freedom.
Module 9, examine your beliefs and habits so you can manifest mastery in readings and all of life.
Our habits, again, will really hold us back because it's all conditioned patterns of thinking and being. So we're going to look at that. And in this module, really dive into visualization for programming new patterns that are much more uplifting. I'll have at least 7 examples of ways we can visualize the future, even though we want to remain present. That's what visualization helps us for. We're creating a new way of doing readings and a new way of being in our lives through these visualization practices. So that's the final module, but it will bring everything back together. Of course, what you're about to talk about, I'll just jump ahead of you, Stephen, and say that we should have covered all of the issues with the ego and how to get better. But just in case anybody has any questions, we've set aside a special module solely for Q&A and just have a nice Q&A session, which will lead to some good discussions.
Well, what a beautiful program. And it's really so clear this isn't just about doing better readings. It's really about evolving as a human being and really using the practice of mediumship as a way to really access our soul's knowledge and really live from that higher ground. And it applies whether you're getting rear-ended or needing to navigate complexities at work or complexities in a family, that all of this practice really is just an opportunity for us to reside in that higher vibration state that is our soul.
Stephen, you can see me doing this teacher thing. I'm pointing my finger because you just made a point that's really critical and I haven't made it yet. It's not just about doing better readings, because there will be some people who have just finished the 7 modules course and may not have even made a connection with spirit yet. That's not what's important about this course. Wherever you are in the mediumship journey, mastering the mindset is critical to moving forward. So this is not about mastering your readings and the connection. If you can master the mindset of a medium, even if you haven't even made a connection yet, then you're going to be in the flow and be much more likely to have clear connections moving forward.
Beautiful. Well, again, the whole program is laid out in detail at mediumshipmindset.com. We can share a little bit more about it. So you'll get not only the 9 90-minute pre-recorded modules from Suzanne, which are packed full of great information and practices, you'll also have the chance to ask your questions in 4 live Q&A sessions with Suzanne. You'll also receive word-for-word transcripts of all 9 modules to work with and highlight. There are weekly practices for home and an online community group to help support you and deepen your experience. There are a number of extra bonuses that will enhance your journey, which you can see on the page at mediumshipmindset.com. So there's real answers from real mediums. This is a video recording with Suzanne and special guests. Would you like to share about that one?
Oh, this one, as I was recording it, I thought this is worth the price of admission to the whole course right here. This bonus session, I took 5 of my former students who are now professional mediums. I love them all, beautiful, beautiful souls. And we got them on a gallery view with the 6 of us, and I asked them questions about, how do you deal with this, and what's been the greatest boon to your journey? And the insights that came up are so deep and yet so common to everybody. And I saw the differences in how each one works, and I just thought, what a gift. If I had had something like this when I was starting out in mediumship, I would have blossomed much faster. But even now, as I watched it, I had insights that I added to the course. So it's really an excellent session that I'm glad is a bonus gift.
It sounds so great. In addition, on the page, there's a number of others I'll draw attention to. There's a discount on HemiSync mediumship products by Suzanne. That's an exclusive savings code. We also on the page describe the full 7-week companion course, The Foundations of Evidential Mediumship. This is bundled with the course, so you can basically do this in parallel or before you start the program. If you weren't in that 7-week program, so there's a lot of key foundations that were laid and practices that were laid, and it's helpful to have those as part of this more advanced program as well. So that's the full title is The Foundations of Evidential Mediumship, confidently receive messages from the other side to further your soul's growth and unite loved ones. So you're going to get that full package together with this brand new program. And Suzanne, want to share a little bit more about what really was so valuable in that program?
Yes, Stephen, this was the first time where I actually asked the students to use the HemiSync recordings, and the feedback from everybody was really superb about how it did help them get in that expanded state, that whole brain state that really helps accelerate the connection. There are always new teachings, even for people who've taken my courses in the past. Like I said, the one student who had taken my courses before, and she still had those ahas and finally got things. So it is the foundations, it's the actual processes and systems, whereas this one that's coming up is not so much about specific processes or steps, but the mindset. So the two really dovetail beautifully.
Beautiful. Well, that's a great reason to take the program so you can just get access to that. In addition, there's a special bonus that's available only until midnight tonight. This is a video webinar episode with Suzanne called The Monthly Connection, a webinar with Suzanne. You want to share a little bit that special bonus they get when they sign up right away?
Yes, Stephen, that's always a 2-hour session that I do every month online of the latest teaching from Spirit that I've gotten and the latest really cool evidence in my reading. So it's a big dose of motivation. It really shows us that the greater reality is here, and very, very practical tools and teaching straight from the spirit world.
Well, it's a great extra reason to sign up right away, and it really gives you an excuse to tune in now and get a sense for whether this is the right next step for you. And if you're getting a sense to move forward from your internal guidance system, then you're going to get that special bonus when you sign up by midnight tonight. So this is truly going to be a life-changing program. We've kept the investment really accessible. It's just 3 payments of $291, or you can save 10% when you pay in full with one payment of $794, and that includes the full $297 7-week program as well. The course is going to start February 26th and run on Thursdays at 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern. The course modules are pre-recorded, so you'll be able to review them at a time and pace that best suits your schedule. The 4 live Q&A sessions take place on Thursdays at 9 a.m. Pacific throughout the course. And even if you can't attend the live Q&A sessions, you can still get the full value with the Q&A recordings and community as well. And I particularly encourage you to go to the page at mediumshipmindset.com and read through the whole thing and pay special attention to the testimonials. This really gives us an insight or a window into how lives are changed as a result of this practice. Something that is profound for you. It can be profound for your family, friends, and even professional clients that you start to move in that direction. So it really, Suzanne just gives you a foundation for evolving yourself such that living in a soul-centered, spirit-led way is really the foundation of your life. And people just rave about her as a teacher and the amount of love and patience and real just wisdom that she shares as well. So you get a sense for all those testimonials on the page, and you can also read through all the modules and the bonuses and see the 7-week program as well that that builds upon which this one builds. So again, that's mediumshipmindset.com, mediumshipmindset.com. So Suzanne, we got a minute or two left. Anything that's still on your heart you want to share with folks who are considering diving deeper into mastering the mediumship mindset with you?
Yes, just that we are never alone. We're always connected to higher consciousness. And those of you who follow my work know that every morning I sit in spirit and get a daily message that I share with the world. And this morning's was all about the fact that we are all here to shine our light brighter. And so anything we can do to turn up that light is well worth the effort. And I know that this course will help you all to do that. Again, it's all about personal freedom, knowing that you're not stuck in the only human mindset. And it's just such a blessing to be able to help people find that freedom.
Well, thank you for your wisdom and your deep intention for people to find freedom and find peace and healing through this work. And it really is I think it's such a gift to the planet that as we really open to being multidimensional beings who are here for a brief sojourn, and then ultimately we're spiritual beings having a human experience that really shifts the ground of how we live on this planet. So you're really making such a profound contribution to uplifting humanity through this work. So thank you all for joining, and thank you again, Suzanne. And if you'd like to go further, you can do so at mediumshipmindset.com, and you get that special bonus on the monthly connection when you do sign up by midnight tonight. So thank you all.